For decades, the world looked at Michael Jackson and asked the same question. What was really happening to him? His face changed. His skin changed. His body changed. His voice, his style, his appearance, and even the way he moved seemed almost impossible to understand. Millions of fans believed they knew the story. The media gave one version. The critics gave another, and Michael himself tried again and again to explain what was happening. But the more he explained, the more the world doubted him. For decades, people turned Michael Jackson's appearance into a mystery, a joke, a headline, and a controversy. But today, when experts look back at the medical details, the skin condition he spoke about, the pressure he lived under, and the science behind pigmentation, genetics, and the human body, the story becomes much deeper than the rumors. Because this was not just about fame, it was not just about beauty, and it was not just about a superstar changing his image, it was about a man whose body became one of the most discussed mysteries in entertainment history. And, for years, the world may have been looking at the wrong question. The real question was not simply why Michael Jackson looked different. The real question was what his body was trying to reveal. Michael Jackson was not born into normal fame. He was not a young artist who slowly became famous over time. He was a child placed under bright lights before he could even understand what the lights meant. By the time most children are learning how to play freely, Michael was already rehearsing, performing, traveling, and carrying the pressure of an entire family's dream. He became the youngest star of the Jackson 5. He was loved by millions. But behind the smile, there was pressure. Behind the music, there was control. And behind the perfect stage image, there was a child growing up in front of cameras that never looked away. That is where the mystery begins. Because when a person grows up under that kind of pressure, every change becomes public. Every haircut becomes a headline. Every facial expression becomes a story. Every medical issue becomes gossip. And for Michael Jackson, even his skin became something the world felt it had the right to judge. In the early years, Michael had a rich brown complexion, an afro hairstyle, and the young face of a child star. He was energetic, confident, and full of natural charisma. Fans saw him as the bright young boy with a powerful voice. But as the years passed, people began to notice changes. His skin tone appeared lighter. His facial features looked different. His style became more refined, more dramatic, and more mysterious. And instead of asking what might be happening medically, much of the media turned it into accusation. They said he was trying to erase who he was. They said he was ashamed of his background. They said he wanted to become someone else. But Michael denied those claims. Again and again, he said he had a skin condition. He said the change was not because he hated his race. He said he was proud of who he was. But the world was not ready to listen. One of the most important parts of this story is vitiligo. Vitiligo is a condition where the skin loses pigment in patches. It can affect any part of the body. It can spread slowly, quickly, or unevenly. For some people, it affects small areas. For others, it becomes much more visible. And when the person suffering from it is the most photographed entertainer on earth, the condition becomes impossible to hide. Michael Jackson said publicly that he had vitiligo. But even after that, many people still refused to believe him. They treated his explanation as another mystery. They turned his medical condition into a debate. And that is where the DNA angle becomes important. Because skin color is not controlled by one simple factor. It is connected to melanin, genetics, immune response, pigmentation, and the way the body's cells behave. Scientists have long understood that skin pigmentation is complex. It is not just about appearance. It is biology. It is inherited traits. It is cellular behavior. It is how the body produces, protects, and sometimes loses pigment. In vitiligo, the body's immune system can attack the cells that produce pigment. These cells are called melanocytes. When melanocytes are damaged or destroyed, areas of skin can lose color. To the public, it may look like a person is changing by choice, but inside the body, something much more complicated may be happening. This is why Michael Jackson's story was never as simple as the headlines made it seem. The world looked at his face, but science looks deeper. The world looked at his skin, but medicine looks at the cells beneath it. The world made jokes, but the human body was telling a different story, and Michael was trapped between those two worlds. For someone like Michael Jackson, hiding was almost impossible. He could not walk into a store normally. He could not appear in public without cameras flashing. He could not change his hairstyle, clothing, or makeup without people turning it into a theory. And when his skin condition became more visible, makeup became part of his public image. Not because he was trying to create mystery, but because he was trying to create consistency. For performers, image matters. For Michael Jackson, image was everything. He was not just a singer, he was a symbol. Every album cover, every music video, every performance, every public appearance was studied by millions. So if his skin had uneven patches, he needed makeup to even out his tone under harsh stage lights. But Michael's changing appearance was not only about skin. There were also questions about his face, his nose, his jawline, his weight, his health, his energy, his emotional state. And every part of him became a topic for public discussion. To understand this story properly, we have to understand something important. Michael Jackson lived in a time when celebrity media was becoming more aggressive. Tabloids were powerful. TV interviews were intense. Headlines were cruel. And the more famous he became, the more the media wanted to break down his image. This is why the title sounds mysterious. Scientists finally revealed what Michael Jackson's DNA was hiding for years. But the truth is not about a secret DNA test. It is not about a shocking hidden document. It is not about turning Michael into a lab experiment. The truth is about understanding what the human body can carry. Genetics can shape appearance. Immune conditions can change pigmentation. Stress can affect health. Medical conditions can become visible. And fame can turn all of it into a public trial. Michael Jackson's body was not hiding a simple secret. It was carrying a story about childhood fame, a story about skin, a story about identity, a story about pain, and a story about how the world judged what it did not fully understand. Because Michael Jackson was more than a changed face, more than a skin condition, more than a headline, more than a controversy. He was a human being whose life was watched, judged, celebrated, and misunderstood on a level few people will ever experience. And when we look beyond the surface, the real mystery becomes clear. The world thought Michael Jackson was hiding the truth. But maybe the truth was hiding in plain sight all along. In the next part, we will look deeper into the science behind Michael Jackson's skin condition, how vitiligo works, why pigmentation can change, and why the public misunderstood one of the most visible medical stories in pop culture history. To understand why Michael Jackson's appearance became such a global mystery, we have to look beyond the stage lights, beyond the headlines, and beyond the photographs that people used to compare him year after year. Because the story of his skin was never only about what people could see on the outside. It was also about what was happening beneath the surface, inside the cells that give skin its color. Human skin gets its color from melanin. Melanin is the pigment that helps determine the color of the skin, hair, and eyes. The cells that produce melanin are called melanocytes. When those cells work normally, they help create an even skin tone. But when those cells are damaged, destroyed, or stop functioning in certain areas, the skin can begin to lose pigment. This is the basic science behind vitiligo. It is not a simple cosmetic change. It is not something a person can control by willpower. It is not a mood, a fashion choice, or a desire to become someone else. It is a condition connected to the body's own biology. And in many cases, the immune system plays a major role. In vitiligo, the body can mistakenly attack the very cells responsible for producing pigment. The immune system, which is supposed to protect the body, begins acting against the melanocytes. When these pigment-producing cells are reduced or destroyed, lighter patches can appear on the skin. Sometimes those patches are small. Sometimes they spread. Sometimes they are easy to cover. And sometimes they become impossible to hide. This is why Michael Jackson's explanation mattered. When he said he had a skin disorder, he was not simply giving a celebrity excuse. He was describing something real, something medical, and something deeply personal. But because the public had already built its own version of the story, many people did not accept his words. They looked at the change and decided they already knew the reason. The more his skin changed, the louder the rumors became. Some people said he was bleaching his skin because he wanted to look different. Others accused him of rejecting his identity. Some turned it into comedy. Others turned it into anger. But very few people stopped and asked what it must feel like to have a medical condition become an international debate. For Michael Jackson, that visibility created a painful problem. If parts of his skin were losing pigment while other parts remained darker, then every public appearance became complicated. Under stage lights, cameras, and close-up photography, uneven patches could become even more noticeable. And for an artist whose image was watched by the entire world, that was not a small issue. Makeup became a way to manage what the condition was doing. It helped create a more even appearance. It helped him step onto a stage without the world focusing only on patches, color differences, or medical symptoms. But to the public, makeup often created more questions. Instead of seeing it as a practical solution, people saw it as proof of something suspicious. And that is why the phrase, "what his DNA was hiding," is so powerful. It is not about claiming there was a secret genetic file that suddenly explained everything. It is about the deeper biological truth that most people ignored. Skin color, pigment, immune response, and physical appearance are not simple. They are connected to complex systems inside the body, systems that most viewers never think about when they look at a celebrity photograph. The human body carries information in ways people cannot see. Genes influence how our bodies develop. They play a role in skin pigmentation, immune responses, and how certain conditions may appear. But genetics is not always destiny. Many conditions are shaped by a mix of genetic tendency, immune activity, environmental triggers, stress, and time. That makes the human body much more complicated than a headline. But when we slow the story down, a different picture appears. Michael Jackson was not only changing in front of the world. He was surviving in front of the world. He was performing while being questioned. He was smiling while being mocked. He was explaining while being doubted, and he was trying to protect his image while his own body was becoming part of the controversy. Michael Jackson's skin condition became one of the most misunderstood examples of this. For years, his words were treated as suspicious. But medical understanding tells a different story. The loss of pigment is not fantasy. The role of melanocytes is not gossip. The emotional stress of visible skin conditions is not imaginary. These are real parts of human biology and human experience. And that is what made his story so tragic. Michael Jackson spent years telling people there was a medical reason behind his changing skin. But for many, the truth only became easier to accept after he was gone. That says something painful about fame. Sometimes the world demands proof from people who are already suffering. And sometimes, even when proof exists, the world still chooses the more dramatic story. The DNA was not hiding a scandal. The body was not hiding shame. The science was not hiding a betrayal. And what was hidden for years was understanding. The understanding that Michael Jackson's appearance could not be explained by gossip alone. The understanding that a medical condition can change a life. The understanding that a person can be telling the truth and still not be believed. And once we see that, the story changes completely. Michael Jackson's changing skin was not just a visual transformation. It was a human story written across his body, misunderstood by millions, defended by fans, and slowly re-examined through. But Michael Jackson's story did not stop with his skin. As the years passed, the mystery around his appearance became bigger than the medical condition itself. People were no longer only asking why his skin looked different. They were asking why his entire image seemed to change. His face, his body, his clothing, his voice, his private life, and even his emotional state became part of a worldwide conversation that never seemed to end. Some people looked at Michael and saw a genius performer who was constantly evolving. Others saw a man under impossible pressure. And many in the media saw something they could turn into headlines. Every change became a story. Every public appearance became evidence for a new theory. Every photograph was compared to another photograph from years before. And slowly, Michael Jackson became one of the most analyzed human beings in modern celebrity history. The rumors about surgery became one of the loudest parts of that conversation. Michael himself admitted to having some cosmetic procedures, especially related to his nose, but the media often pushed the story much further. Instead of treating it as a personal subject, they turned it into public entertainment. His face became something people felt allowed to discuss, judge, mock, and question without limits. But when experts look at celebrity transformation, they often point out that appearance is affected by many things at once. Aging changes the face. Weight changes the face. Lighting changes the face. Makeup changes the face. Camera angles change the face. Medical conditions, stress, sleep, and emotional pressure can also change the way a person looks over time. Yet the public usually wants one simple answer, and Michael Jackson was rarely given that fairness. This is where fame became dangerous. Michael was not just famous. He was trapped inside fame. He had become so iconic that people forgot he was still human. They expected him to stay young, perfect, magical, and untouchable forever. But no human body can survive that kind of expectation without showing signs of pressure. Behind the glittering jackets, the moonwalk, the stadium lights, and the screaming crowds, there was a man carrying emotional weight that most people never saw. The pressure began early. Michael's childhood was not normal. He was working when other children were playing. He was performing when other children were resting. He was being judged by audiences before he had even grown into himself. That kind of life can shape a person deeply. It can affect confidence, identity, self-image, and the way someone sees their own reflection. So, when people ask what Michael Jackson's DNA was hiding, the deeper answer is not just about biology. It is also about what his life was carrying. His body carried the signs of a rare level of fame. His image carried the pressure of perfection. His skin carried a medical story that many people refused to believe. And his face carried decades of public judgment, personal choices, health struggles, and media obsession. This is why Michael Jackson's story is not only a science story. It is a media story. It is a fame story. It is a story about how society treats people who are different, especially when that difference appears on the face and body. Science can explain pigmentation, melanocytes, immune response, and genetic influence. But science alone cannot explain why millions of people turned a medical condition into a public trial. In his later years, this became even more intense. The comeback pressure, the constant media attention, the legal battles, the public judgment, and the physical demands of performing all surrounded him. Fans saw the legend. Critics saw controversy. The media saw headlines. But behind all of that was a human being trying to survive the weight of being Michael Jackson. The truth is that Michael Jackson's body became a battlefield for public opinion. His skin became a debate about race. His face became a debate about identity. His health became a debate about truth. And his silence became a space where rumors grew louder than facts. But if we look closely, the mystery begins to change. The real hidden truth was not that Michael Jackson was trying to escape who he was. The real hidden truth was that the world never fully allowed him to explain who he was. He said he had a skin condition. He spoke about being proud of his identity. He tried to correct the rumors, but once a story becomes entertainment, the truth often struggles to catch up. That is why the science matters. It gives context to what the tabloids ignored. It shows that skin change can be medical. It shows that appearance can be affected by biology, stress, treatment, and time. It shows that the human body is more complex than a headline. And it reminds us that what we see on the surface is not always the full story. Michael Jackson's DNA was not hiding a scandal. It was hiding complexity. It was hiding biology. It was hiding the quiet truth that a person's body can change in ways the public does not understand. And behind that body was a man who spent much of his life being watched more closely than almost anyone else on earth. In the end, Michael Jackson's greatest mystery may not have been his skin, his face, or even the changes people argued about for decades. The greatest mystery was how a man so loved by the world could also be so deeply misunderstood by it. He was celebrated as the king of pop, but judged like he belonged to everyone. He was admired for his talent, but questioned for his pain. He gave the world magic, while the world kept demanding explanations. For years, people asked what Michael Jackson was hiding, but maybe he was not hiding the truth at all. Maybe the truth was always there, in his words, in his condition, in the science, and in the pain behind the image. The world just did not want to hear it. Because every legend leaves behind questions. Every icon leaves behind rumors. And every human body carries a story the public may never fully understand. Michael Jackson's story was written in music, movement, fame, controversy, science, and suffering. And when we look beyond the headlines, one thing becomes clear. The world did not just witness Michael Jackson change. The world witnessed a man trying to live with a truth that millions refused to believe. And perhaps that is what Michael Jackson's DNA was hiding for years, not a secret about who he wanted to become, but the evidence of what he had been carrying all along. A medical story, a human story, and a legacy the world is still trying to understand. The lens of science, medicine, and time.